Deputy Commissioner for the Office of Enforcement and Neighborhood Services. So we cover housing maintenance complaints, we do emergency repair work, we put out a document on tenant and owner information. Property owners have to register with us. Those are some of the major issues that we interact with the public on.
Hi, I'm Meryl Block-Weissman. I'm the Deputy Commissioner for Housing, Access, and Stability. So the work in our office is about how do we connect New Yorkers to housing. So the things that includes is our Section 8 program. HPD is one of the larger Section 8 programs in New York City. And what we are providing is rental assistance to households, as well as additional programs that people who are in those programs. We provide something called family self-sufficiency, ways for opportunities for households that are on our programs to get workforce training, have an opportunity to increase their savings as while they're on the program. And as their income rises and it changes their rental subsidy, it gives an opportunity for them to have some opportunities to keep savings, as well as look for more career opportunities. We have other parts of the office that is about Housing Connect, the ways that the New Yorkers apply through our lottery system for our affordable housing buildings, as well as homeless placement services. So the units that HPD is financing that are required to have homeless households, we coordinate with the Department of Homeless Services and HRA to make sure that we have our homeless households that are placed into those units, as well as providing what we call housing stability services, so ways that we can also support the households that we are working with.
That's good.
Okay. Hi, I'm Emily Osgood. I'm Associate Commissioner for Housing Opportunity and Placement Services. I work with Meryl, and my portfolio is largely the operations of how people get into our housing. So several of the programs that Meryl just mentioned, namely Housing Connect, the affordable housing lottery that matched over 10,000 households, 10,000 families to affordable housing through HPD last year. You'll also probably see listings online for Housing Connect affordable housing lotteries, and people who access your publications may apply. There are millions of people applying through Housing Connect every year, so that's a really big public-facing piece of our office. And as Meryl said, we have some other programs that support how people access that housing. We have a Housing Ambassadors program, which is a network of nonprofits who HPD trains and is able to provide a little bit of funding for. And they help people through that lottery application process to make sure that they're as successful as they can be. And Meryl, I think, covered the other main pieces of our program, so I will pass it along to Michael.
Hi, my name is Michael Sandler. I'm the Associate Commissioner for the Office of Neighborhood Strategies. What we do in the Office of Neighborhood Strategies is we partner with community-based organizations and community stakeholders to support tenants and homeowners with their housing needs and to plan for the future of their communities. So we do that first through around $20 million of annual funding to community-based organizations. We fund about 80 nonprofits to provide homeowner and tenant outreach, education, counseling programs in all 5 boroughs. And we partner with community boards, community stakeholders, council members to plan for future housing developments in their communities, both at the neighborhood scale. We partner with city agencies like the Department of City Planning on neighborhood scale rezonings and neighborhood plans. We're currently doing that in the East New York community right now. And we lead the development of city-owned property to transform that into affordable housing, whether it be vacant land or city-owned assets that need to be refurbished or reconstructed, like public libraries, police parking lots, or derelict recreation centers. We partner with other city agencies to turn those into mixed-use affordable housing paired with those community resources.
Greetings, everyone. Good morning. My name is Lucian Reynolds. I'm the Deputy Chief of Staff to Kim Darga, who is the Deputy Commissioner for Development. The HPD's Office of Development is responsible for bringing new affordable units online across the 5 boroughs. They do that in a variety of methods. One is through new construction. So HPD takes subsidies from the federal government, from the state government, city level subsidy, and they bring it together with private financing to create new construction units. We try to do it in every single neighborhood in the city. We also create supportive housing using other special funds of money to help New Yorkers with very specific issues, either get off the street, get into a safe place, away from a dangerous place. We also have special housing for seniors across the city, where we take units set aside for people over the age of 60. And that's part of the new construction side. We also have a preservation side that takes existing units, existing affordable units, and keeps them affordable for New Yorkers. This is to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars of subsidy. We are breaking records and putting new units on the board and keeping New Yorkers in affordable units. The other important part about preservation is that we're taking older buildings that need work and we're bringing them up to modern standards, creating safe apartments from apartments that are either dilapidated or aren't serving populations well because the elevators aren't working well. And so it's a huge part of bringing older city buildings up to modern standards. Also, we have a division where we take tax incentives, so things you've probably heard of 421A, 485X, where developers will get abatements to property taxes for a certain amount of time in exchange for making a certain portion of their units affordable. Our division also manages that pipeline. So altogether, well, we are the unit that creates the pipeline where you've heard of Housing Connect, the places people into those units. We are the ones who are making those units possible. We also.
This is my turn, and I took the jacket off. I hope that's okay. I'm just more freer, and I feel more comfortable without the jacket. And it's great to see you guys again. You know, I just want to build up on what Fernando says. You know, HPD, very simply, we are here to create opportunities for housing. We are here to preserve the incredibly valuable and irreplaceable housing stock that we have. We are here to think holistically about where we build and where we finance and what we do in those neighborhoods, realizing that we have an impact, we have a ripple effect that goes beyond just a momentary role. We can be there in a way that thinks holistically about where that neighborhood wants to be, not where we want it to be, where they want to be 10, 20, 50 years down the line. So we have a responsibility to be there as a planning partner. It's a lot of the work that Michael does and his team in working alongside neighborhood partners and plan for the future of that neighborhood. And while we invest and we create new and we preserve and we plan, we also have a responsibility to protect the people who are in those homes, protect both the homes and the families, the individuals that live there. So we have the responsibility as the steward of the Housing Maintenance Code to go out, follow up on issues and complaints, issue out violations, make sure repairs happen if they are not happening as required. And then for those owners who do want to help, but they themselves are going through financial distress or seeing difficulty in getting the resources that they need, that's where the work of the preservation side development helps them finance those projects. That's why we advocate at the state level and at the local level for as-of-right tools that require less paperwork to help pay for repairs through deferred taxes. And then lastly, but very importantly, sometimes we're financing the creation of that housing, but as you've heard before, we're also the stewards of rental assistance that allows people access into the private market where housing is. So we are giving people the money that gives them the ability to get the keys to go into the apartments that are available throughout the 5 boroughs. This is a really key part we underscore and we say often about how we need to build in every area, because something that's really critical to HPD is our ability to advance to advance fair housing principles in the city of New York. we see it as a main obligation of ours to make sure that you as a New Yorker have the ability to live where you and your family feel is the best fit for you. I grew up in Sunset Park, Brooklyn. Let me tell you why I love Sunset Park, Brooklyn. Because you could be on Fifth Avenue and you can get incredible sneakers and some pretty good Tex-Mex food. And then I wandered up when I would wander up to 8th Avenue, and I would have like an amazing buffet of food and great parks. And then I would go over toward the 60s, and I would be able to like take part in an Irish step dancing class. Yes, I did an Irish step dancing class once. Only once. I was not good at it, and I used to, and that neighborhood for me and our family was a perfect fit because those were the experiences I wanted to have, and for us to be able to do that, we got to benefit from rental assistance that the city was providing. So whether it's by creating housing ground up, whether it's by preserving housing that's already there, whether it's by making sure that people have the rental assistance they need to access the housing that they want, and ensuring that that building stock and where people live is safe, secure, and habitable, HPD is there to look out for the New Yorker who wants fair choice, fair chance, and fair access. These are things that frame out how we come into this work every day. When someone walks into this office or any of the other satellite offices that we have, because we have a presence in every borough, these are some of the main big ideas that we think about. But beyond that, we're always thinking about how do we creatively make our dollars stretch so we can do more of what we know is so important for us to do. Last year was an incredible year. City agencies collectively financed by creating and preserving over 28,000 units of affordable housing. In that number, when you break it down, 14,000 of that, over 14,000 was new construction, over 13,000 was preservation, and then if you go further into the new construction, it is that to get to that number, we had to be creative. We used both public subsidy, that's public tax dollars, and I'll say this, in this administration, we have built a budget that has put housing at the forefront. It has prioritized housing. We have a housing capital budget of $24.7 billion. It is a tremendous statement that we are making to say that our capital dollars, our city public tax dollars are here to advance the cause of creating more housing. But we are not doing it just through that alone. We're using tools like tax abatements and exemptions. The as of right tax abatements in that 14,000 number created almost 6,000 of those new units, affordable units, income restricted units for New Yorkers. And then on the preservation side, the people we're talking about are not just renters. We're talking about homeowners too. We're talking about the families that built up neighborhoods in Mitchell-Ama developments. We're talking about the families, the 1 to 4 family homes in Eastern Queens that are looking for reliable, accessible, and attainable home fix loans, which come at low to zero and sometimes forgivable terms for those homeowners so they can make badly needed repairs. We are here advancing protections for the entire program of housing that we have here in New York City. So, the numbers, the work, the values that we're trying to advance, we think it's important. But this comes back to the reason why this kind of conversation is important. For us to be effective, people need to know that these programs are here. For us to really get these numbers and put these resources in the hands of people who can use them, we need to communicate not in one language. We need to communicate in all these languages. We need to be in as many places as we can. So we really hope that this is the beginning of, like I said, in our last chance to come together. I really hope this is the beginning of our ability to work together so we can get the stories of what's happening. We can get the stories of what we're doing. We also can hear from you about what's happening. You guys are the eyes and ears and voices of the communities that you represent. You help us do our job better. So we are committed fully to advancing fair, high quality, multiple income tiered, accessible housing in as many corners of the city of New York as we can build. We are going to think creatively. We are going to marshal different ideas and new resources. We're going to think about the people inside the apartments, the buildings themselves, and their structural integrity, their financial integrity. We're going to think about the owners who are working to provide that housing, and we're going to continue advancing ideas that not only think about what the neighborhood looks like now, but what that neighborhood looks like in the future. But I think we're only going to be successful as far as we're able to communicate that clearly and accurately to everyone who needs to hear it. So thank you guys for being here today. And we'd love to answer any questions that would help your readership understand HPD better.
Before we start, just let me say, I'm Fernando Aquino. I think I didn't mention in the beginning because I've been communicating with you through email. Matt Marchenbach is our press secretary. Molly Stromowski, who just left, is our social media director. We have Ilana Maya, which is the director of communication. I just want to say, and Natasha Kursa, which is our deputy press secretary. I just want to say that we are open to any follow-up that you may have after this. Please feel free to communicate with us because we want to be diligent and answer every question and any follow-up that you may have. So with that, go ahead. Yes.
I do have a question.
Yes.
Is this HPD headquarters?
This is the main building, and we have, and Emery will correct me, but we have satellite offices in every borough, plus additional offices here in Manhattan for Upper Manhattan.
As a new immigrant, I think the housing, the New York City housing, just like education, is very complicated to us. So can you briefly tell us that what is the relationship between HUD, HPD, and NYCHA?
Sure. So we are technically a public housing authority. So we are one of two PHAs, that's the acronym for it, that serve New York City. We are designated that through the federal system. We also sit separately and as the city's municipal housing agency with responsibilities separate and apart of that connection. So we work closely with HUD in many ways. One, obviously through the financial and funding opportunities that come through HUD, either through the community block grants that we use to help fund our inspections, our emergency repair work, our emergency housing services. We work with them closely on the administration of the Housing Choice Voucher Program, which has been around since the late 70s and is the rental assistance we primarily talked about here. We work very closely with them on grants and other funding sources like the home funding source, which we use to advance senior housing, help build up our staff capacity around development. We work closely with them on policy and advocacy around tools that are HUD related but not directly administered by HUD, like low-income tax credits. We've talked a little bit about this before, but low-income tax credits, which is something that also involves other partners on the federal level like Treasury, IRS, is a highly productive and incredibly important tool nationally that's built up hundreds of thousands of units using another tax benefit to create extra low and low income housing. So HUD is a partner in that with the with those other government agencies. And I think lastly, HUD from a fair housing perspective, from other policies related to home ownership or advancing just the greater production of units, because we simply have not enough units to meet the demand. There are a lot of ways that we work with HUD on a day-to-day basis, and they're broken up both in their main office, their central office, and they also have regional offices, and we work with both.
Oh, I see. So the whole building, this building is going to, the building is going to tear down, and so where HPD will it going?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'm going to start. I'm actually going to invite Michael because his team has been working on this with partners like the New York City Economic Development Corporation, but let's just take a step back. You know, the housing crisis that we're in, we're at a 1.4 vacancy. If you look at units that are 2,800, and let me just really crystallize, so 1.4% vacancy. 1.4% of available units based on a snapshot of data from a 2023 housing vacancy survey. That's all units, that's all housing, affordable, not affordable. This is for a city of 8.6 million, for a city whose tri-state, the tri-state community, the wider community that interacts with New York City, totals over 20 million. That is a disastrously low number. That harms housing, but also harms our economic development potential. It harms our environmental justice potential. It just creates hardship that's unnecessary. So we have to build more housing. The way we build housing, we can do that by improving the regulations. We can do that by increasing the subsidy in the capital. We've talked, either the Get Stuff Done work that the administration has been doing, 111 recommendations to cut down the regulatory process by 50%, save money, try to create better relationships between the agencies like DOB, DEP, HPD, all of that's in progress. But as Michael pointed out, we have a responsibility for looking at public assets, public land, and advancing those projects. We have been doing that successfully for a long time, but the mayor wanted to take it one more step forward. One of those ways of doing it is it was Executive Order 43, which convened the citywide housing activation task force. That made a call out, a requirement to agency heads across the city, where we have city buildings, where we have city assets, which normally would have been very difficult to reconsider for housing, which is something that actually we've been doing for a while. You can look at the public libraries where we've worked with them and partnered and built beautiful mixed-use development. The Eliza in Inwood, 186 units of housing, a new 20,000 square foot library that comes with a STEM center, children and child-focused activities, really hitting and checking a lot of boxes for a community that wanted to see good community resources, a new library and housing. We know how to do this, but we want to take it even one step further. So the mayor's charge was to look at pieces of land where the cost may be very difficult at relocating those services, but could that opportunity also yield a great amount of housing? What would those numbers be? Let's not be afraid of challenges. 100 Gold Street is a great example of that. So this is a building that not only houses HPD, but there are also other city agencies that share our space, maybe to a smaller footprint. There's also other community uses here in the building. The cost of this building to keep up and maintain is not it's not cheap. It costs money to keep the building in service. So we looked at the benefit of continuing to use this site for a city purpose. Also thinking about what the development potential. If you look around us, you can see that this footprint can actually be a really great housing site and yield a lot of units. And so what's the cost benefit to the taxpayer? What are we doing to improve both from a policy perspective for the people who live here, the housing or other uses, and the money we're spending to keep an inefficient old building going? So moving in that direction, an RFP went out to say what our own assessment is that we can build maybe 2,000 units of housing here in this site. And if you think about just using the basic protections and programs we built in to mandate affordable housing when these kind of large developments go in, 25% of that could yield 500 units, which in itself would be nearly 10 times the number of affordable housing units been built in this district over the last decade. Think about that. And the even better part of that, this would not be using city subsidy as currently proposed, meaning that city subsidy that we can use on other projects while still building 500 units of income restricted housing, not having to pour money, city taxpayer money into a building that's older. As part of that RFP, it's also contemplated that the developer help us think about where the city agencies can more efficiently go so that they can continue doing their work in a different state-of-the-art facility. We've got nearly 2,000 public employees who work in this building. They work hard, they deserve, in this building alone, it's a little under 2,000. And they deserve a state-of-the-art facility too. And that's something that we hope to be able to deliver as part of this project. It's a complicated project, there's a lot of moving pieces, but we'll be able to solve the question of what is a great space that we can give the future for HPD employees? How do we build a ton of incredibly and badly needed units with affordable units without using
So
public
where will
subsidy?
be new headquarters of HPD?
That's part of what the RFP process will help.
Oh,
You know.
okay.
Can I
Yeah.
clarify a few points? So just first, this building has over $200 million of deferred capital needs. So in order to just bring this building to a state of good repair, it would take over $200 million. Very expensive to fix this building. It has very aging
How old
infrastructure.
is this building? How old is
This building is from the 1970s. It's not that old, but it has not been cared for very well. Under current zoning, we anticipate that new residential construction on this site could yield over 1,000 units. Ahmed said 2,000.
Oh,
There's a
sorry.
potential for a rezoning.
So 1,000 or 2,000?
So-
So
sorry.
1,000.
So
Under
1,000
current
under current zoning.
Yes, so under current zoning, we think that this building could create about 1,000 housing units. HPD and the the Economic Development Corporation have together released a request for proposals asking to developers to propose what would housing look like on this site. Under that RFP, we've asked them to provide a proposal under current zoning and also to provide a proposal for increasing the zoning on the site, which we think could yield more than 1,000 units, but we're not sure how many. The way that this RFP is structured is that developers are proposing a new residential development and they would acquire the property from the city, and they're offering a price for what they would acquire the property for. We will use those funds to purchase a new office building. So we don't know where we'll move yet. We need to see how much funds are going to be
So
generated.
how many RFP right now?
The request for proposals went out in,
Sorry, it's one RFP.
one RFP.
That people are responding to.
Yeah.
We don't know how many people have responded yet. We're still waiting for the closing date to come, which will be soon.
So can I ask one more question about it's a little bit political. So because I work in Chinatown, so pretty familiar with Elizabeth Street Garden.
Yeah.
So the whole thing is like already they try to build affordable housing there. So but the neighborhood or the council member against it. So make the lawsuit almost like last one. So it seems like this building also that when the mayor said the city of yes, try to rebuild this to make more affordable housing, but the council member here also already against it. So when the city government have a plan like this, try to build more housing, but with the local council member against it, so how
Yeah,
you-
no, I think we talked about this at the last meeting, and the deputy mayor, I'm just gonna echoes, because we believe in the same position, which is that, we have as an agency and as a city we've never been afraid of taking a tough idea and advancing a tough idea. In fact, we've been very successful in making a vision of how to produce more housing, even when there's political obstacles or issues that come up, because we know how to actively work and continue a conversation. We know how to bring people together who may have different perspectives and different ideas and work together to get to an end product that we think still reflects what we're trying to do, but achieves the goal of producing for the people in our communities. City of Yes is a great example, right? So there was an initial plan, and there were a lot of great ideas, and through deliberate conversations where the city went to every community board, where we did dozens of individual meetings with nonprofits and community stakeholders, where it was months and months of constant conversations, and then at the very end, very tough, honest, but productive conversations with the city council, a vision for the city that created the most dramatic and dynamic zoning proposal since the 1960s actually was passed, voted on, passed, and now is reality. That is a representative of how we faced what was very serious concerns and objections, and we were able to overcome that. We have been able to replicate that on individual public sites, private rezonings, even here in this area. 250 Water Street is an example of a project that faced opposition but was able to advance forward. There are numerous examples of neighborhood rezonings, like the Soho NoHo rezoning, which was a fair housing priority for the city, but we were able to get through very tough conversations and see that forward, and see that rezoning come to fruition. Council members have a responsibility of being very clear and upfront, and to advance their position on what their community needs. We see that as something that is a valuable point of the point of the process. But we're gonna work with any Councilmember Marte, or in any neighborhood that we work in, to take those positions and continue to move forward and continue to have that discussion, because these things are too important just to stop.
But the thing is, like,
Excuse me.
city of yes.
Yes.
One
No,
last
I'm
question.
gonna jump in real quick. I wanna make sure that we get to as many questions as
Yes.
possible. So we're gonna move on, and if we have time, we can come back. I'm also gonna ask you all to keep your question or your answers as brief as possible. So let's move to the next question, and then we'll go to you, and then we can keep going from there. Yes.
This question is to Mario and Emily for the ambassador program. Do you have a Chinese speaker? And if like the Epoch Times, we often host community events. Can we invite you come to on site and to help them to fill out the lottery forms? Because I go through your lottery forms, still has something not very clear. Although you already prepare very good information, but for the non-Chinese speakers, still need some help, I believe. So, and do you offer this kind of help?
Yeah, I can jump in there so there are about 45 housing ambassadors across the city. Most of them are doing work in those neighborhoods and partnering with us on a volunteer basis, but a handful were able to provide a small amount of funding every year, one of which this year is the Chinese American Planning Council, who has Chinese language capabilities, and their main office is in the Lower East Side, but they also have presences in Brooklyn and Queens. And so we would be happy to connect you with them and partner together on an event. Our staff can often join public events as well, but the in-person assistance, that individual help with an application for speakers of any language, but particularly where we have language capacities, especially in Chinese, the housing ambassador organizations like Chinese American Planning Council can be a really great resource, and we would be happy to make that connection with you. Yeah.
All right. So my question is about rental assistance program and housing lottery program. Immigrant community who are confronting with language barrier and not too much awareness about all the great opportunities we just spoke about. So who are eligible to have these benefits? Work permit holders, permanent residents, and green card holders. And sometimes immigrant communities are under the impression they should not apply for these benefits just because at some stage when they are going to become naturalized citizen, it could be considered as public charge. So can you please clarify anybody who is?
Yeah, so you want to start with the housing?
I'll
side,
start with
because
the
that's
housing lottery, yeah. So great question, and really complicated one that we care a lot about. For Housing Connect housing lotteries, there is no point at which immigration status or citizenship status is a reason for eligibility if you're applying online through if you're applying through Housing Connect for a housing lottery. However, when there is people have to prove through showing income documentation, pay stubs, IDs, that they qualify for between the minimum and maximum income for that affordable housing. And so what we have a pathway, there is not a named barrier, but to be really transparent, because I know we all want people to be successful and make the best use of their time when they're looking for housing. We do sometimes see challenges if we have a whole family that is not documented or is not able to document their income, show documentation of their income. That can be a challenge in getting through the whole lottery process. Again, immigration status, citizenship status is not a condition. There are times in the process when having that additional income documentation is necessary. So you should be aware of that. And then, do you want to talk about?
And one more, like,
Yeah.
if somebody get the housing lottery, would that be considered on public charge?
I
So I can jump in
don't
here.
want to answer yet.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we would say is we were
Lucy, could you
monitoring.
introduce yourself?
Yes, I am really sorry. I am Lucy Jaffe. I'm the Deputy Commissioner for Policy and Strategy. It was very important for me to be here, so I rearranged some things and did not actually let them know I would be, but I'm glad to be here with you. And I wanted to jump in because I think these are some difficult questions that is in this moment. We've been here before. HPD remains really committed both to serving New Yorkers, all New Yorkers, as well as sharing information as we have it, right? There is no public charge requirement in place at the moment, so it's difficult to speculate, and we know that that's incredibly challenging at this moment.
Right.
We remain committed to our values, and that's what we're always going to do for New Yorkers, and with everything we can do to protect people. But it's also very difficult to speculate in any moment, but in this environment, about sort of what would or would not be attempted under such a change from the federal government.
At this moment, we continue to advocate very strenuously that this is an agency committed to our immigrant community, and that we see our responsibility of both making sure that we are protecting people, but also through opportunities like this, as we educate and get the information out, we are helping prepare people for any eventuality that comes. So as we get information and as we digest it and we understand its impact, we're going to want to work with our partners here to get that out and make sure that they are informed as well.
And other part, lotteries, rental assistance.
Yeah,
part.
and it's saying that's where I think, especially where on the lotteries and the things that the city creates, it's where our policy and our vision of being able to help all New Yorkers, we're able to put that at the forefront. Where it gets more complicated is when we do have federal rental subsidy programs, and that does have requirements around immigration status.
Mhm.
So the way that it works right now is that if a household has at least one member of the household where it is documented, we are able to what we call prorate the subsidy. So let's say you had a 4-person household, you and one person has the documentation that's necessary. The subsidy would be equivalent if it was a 1-person household. So that is where, but if there is no one in the household that does not have and has immigration status, we are not able to provide federal subsidies. But wanted to kind of step back that in general in New York City, that this is a little bit to your question between NYCHA and HPD, that if the general public wanted to get on a wait list, which currently is closed for rental assistance, that is what is through NYCHA. HPD does have a rental subsidies program, Section 8, but it is for a slightly different population. But that is one area where it also gets different between what is HPD and NYCHA, as well as when it comes to the public housing, kind of when you're thinking about the more traditional full buildings, when you think about NYCHA, that is the NYCHA public housing. And that also has the same requirements, I believe, in terms of the fact that at least one member of the household needs to have some documented status.
Yeah, so there's public housing is considered Section 9 housing. The rental assistance, so that's publicly owned housing. Public assistance or rental assistance is publicly funded that is used in the private market is Section 8 housing. We didn't mention this at the top, but we also manage rental assistance for other programs. So we also have a very strong commitment to supportive housing. We have so many individuals and families who just need that extra support in order to have tools to be active partners of this great city. So there are supportive housing developments that we finance and create new. We do conversions of existing buildings, as you guys have heard from us before, work that we're doing to either convert older buildings, rehab, preserved into new vibrant housing that could also be used for supportive housing and for other affordable housing uses. We're also converting hotels and underutilized office buildings into different types of housing, including supportive housing, and there's a rental assistance program that runs with it, which HPD is responsible for. A lot of this falls under the umbrella of the 1515 program, which we just recently made a huge commitment to increase the work we do around new supportive housing buildings, put more money into the rental assistance that goes along with it, and really make that commitment to those individuals and households who benefit from the work we do around supportive housing.
Any other questions? Yes.
Just question.
Go ahead.
How many years the applicant can get to the house usually?
Yearly.
It's okay. Yeah.
For our
How long? I think your question is like what is the average of time it takes for someone to get into?
Yeah. So it depends on your pathway into affordable housing, as if you're applying through the housing lottery or going through our homeless placements program. It's going from the time you initially apply to the time you move in. We're seeing that right now it's a few to several months for each household. That is something that is on I think the top of our priority list, to reduce that amount of time for every household that is accessing affordable housing, accessing a voucher, to be able to get into their home faster. So we are working in a number of ways to speed up that time. Is that what you're?
I think so, but I think you're also asking if you are a person just applying for housing, how long does it normally take to get in? And I'm going to start an answer. I think, you guys should add here, but we've talked earlier about the housing supply problem. We think on average we have buildings that see upwards of 16,000 applications per building. Every unit of housing sees hundreds of applicants that come seeking an opportunity to be in that unit. We have over a million unique users on Housing Connect who are looking for affordable housing. And while we're tremendously proud of the ability to get 10,000 people into housing last year, 4,000 people out of shelters into new housing, we know that we just need more housing in order to make that happen. The tricky part of your question is that it's a lottery. And that's done because we want to make sure that if you applied for that lottery on the first day that lottery started, or on the 30th day of that lottery started, every individual deserves the same chance of getting an opportunity to get that unit. So what happens is when the lottery closes, there's a randomized list that's created, and then that's how you get your log number. That's the order in which someone's called to be called for that unit. So it does depend on where your log number is, and some people get called in a couple of months. Sometimes there are people who've been applying for several years and not have had that. And I think we have some average times based on the data, but I will say, and I will continue to say, that in order for us to reduce that time, to create more chances for people to feel like they are getting called as a potential applicant for a unit more often, we need to build more housing. We need to build more housing using city subsidy. We need to build more housing using tax abatements and creating more mixed income housing. We need neighbors and neighborhoods and elected officials to partner with us and invite new housing into their districts, and then people will see the length of time of getting chosen in the lottery come down.
One more question.
I think there was another, you had a question?
And then
It's a following up
somebody-
with the.
Okay, okay, go ahead.
Sorry, one second. We'll go to you and then we'll go back to your follow-up.
Two simple questions. Maybe when apply the NYC Connect, maybe you can some for example her apply for the NYC Connect and he just get the email that reject. Can you maybe some next time can improve that why get rejection? Maybe the requirement not fit or just not fit all the requirement and just get you don't have the chance to get it. And the second is the affordable housing lottery that the rent is not a lot of choice, things not affordable. Yeah, but maybe I can get why the pricing strategy or.
Well, so on the first piece, and Emily and Meryl, you guys jump in. So when you do receive a rejection from a housing lottery that you participate in, you do have the opportunity to ask why. You can there's a process, and that information is provided to every applicant who goes through the process to be able to contact the marketing agent and get get information about why they were rejected. And if you're not satisfied with that, there's actually an appeals process built into the process of going through that. So you can contact the marketing agent. There's an appeals process that involves HPD staff as well. So there are multiple ways to get information about why that determination happened. That being said, we're actually working on new ideas now on how to be more clear and how to communicate better, because Housing Connect is something that, first of all, was first in the nation, something that we as New York invented as a way to create a centralized, clear platform that hadn't been seen before in the work that we do. And 2016 was when this really first went live. 2020, we came up with changes, but we know that we need to make even more improvements. So we're continuing to work and do better communication. And so, Emily, and then I want to address your second question.
Sure, I can say even that's all absolutely. If you are working with someone or you know somebody who has received through Housing Connect a notice that they didn't qualify for the unit they rejected, the first thing they can do is go into Housing Connect, click the link in that email if they're getting it through email, and there will be information there about why they were rejected. So you gave the example of maybe they didn't meet the qualifications, maybe their income level didn't match for that particular unit, or their household size didn't match the available units. That initial information is right there on Housing Connect for the individual that applied. And then, as Ahmed said, if you need more information, if you disagree with what you're seeing there, then there's an appeals process through Housing Connect, and we are improving those tools continually.
And I would just add, the question of affordability and the question of how we're building to address the fact that we do have so many, vulnerable low-income New Yorkers who need accessible housing at a time where housing costs are so high is exactly the right question to ask. I would say that for us here at HPD, we do actively try to target our subsidy dollars to those families. I think a little over 96% of our subsidized new construction goes to families that are 80% of AMI or lower. That's around, for a family of 3, 2 adults and maybe a child, it's a household of 116,000 per year. So if you take a nurse and a bus driver or any combination of real blue collar or even white collar jobs, you find that we're building households really for those households and less. And if you drill even further into the numbers, it's around 69% 60, 69% for 50% AMI or lower, which is around $75,000 or $80,000 for a family of three, and then around 29-30% for 30% AMI and lower, which is in the 40s. And separate and apart from that subsidized housing, we had it as a policy, and now it's a law for us to build units that are set aside for families and individuals coming out of shelter. We had mentioned earlier nearly 4,000 households moved out of shelter into our subsidized housing, either in the new housing we create, in the housing we preserve and create requirements that they set units aside for those families. We are finding different pathways for vulnerable families to get into housing. And Michael, would you talk a little bit about the public site work? I mean, a lot of our public site work is really dedicated to meeting this need that you've talked about.
For deep affordability?
Yes.
Yeah, I think just when the public owns the land, we have a little bit more control over what projects look like, and we prioritize the needs of a given community and also the needs of citywide of those that are looking for affordable housing. And so you often see on a public site project where the city owns the land, much deeper affordability, where we have kind of more full control.
We are over time, but we can two more questions.
Sir, what does HPD means for contractors in immigrant communities, construction contractors?
Well, I'll talk a little bit about our work on the development side, but maybe Henry, you could talk about the work that they partner to help keep neighborhoods safe. On the development side, we think that our MWBE businesses are a vital part of that network that builds our housing.
Which one?
MWBE. So, in fact, over 10 years ago, the agency established the Building Opportunities Initiative, which has many different parts to it. But the part I want to focus on is our responsibility, our requirement that projects that are financed with over $2 million of public subsidy require at minimum 25% of that cost that the city puts in, or that money the city puts in, to go to MWBE firms and
What's that acronym?
minority and women-owned businesses. And so that program, since 2017, has yielded almost 1.9 billion in spending that has gone to MWBE businesses. And in fact, many people not only meet the 25%, but exceed it. And it is a great way that we are bringing those partners into our work. And in fact, since 2019 or 2020, Michael will correct me, in our public site projects, we require that 25% of the ownership team is either made up of either a MWBE or a nonprofit. And we have seen the number of MWBEs really grow in our work. And in fact, it helps supplement their ability to compete and be part of this. We have other projects that we do with community development finance organizations across the city and who are based nationally. We have something called the New York City Acquisition Fund, which is only available now to minority-owned businesses and minority and women-owned businesses and nonprofits, and they can use that to acquire land, to then come into our pipeline and build projects with us. So trying to give them tools to even take advantage of the tools that we built within the development work. And I will now pass it off to Anne-Marie to talk about how they partner with us to keep buildings together and tenants safe.
So as part of our work responding to tenant conditions, right? So if you have no heat in your building, you have no electricity, you have water leaks, pests, you should always, of course, as a tenant, contact your landlord first and see if it can be addressed. Assuming it can't, and HPD, you call in a complaint to 311, HPD will go and conduct an inspection. An inspector may issue violations for that condition, ordering the landlord to make repairs, right? There are some conditions which, if the landlord chooses to not repair it, the city will go ahead and hire a contractor to make those repairs. We do about $10 to $15 million of work like this every year. We also do demolition work where if the Department of Buildings finds a building structurally unsound, we will go and the owner fails to correct it, we will go and hire a demolition contractor. All of these contractors are private companies, small companies. We do a lot of business with minority and women-owned businesses where we issue a work order to them. Either they get a contract from us, a big contract, and it's a task order where we just assign it to them, or they bid on individual jobs and they go into private housing and they make repairs, plumbing, general construction, electrical repairs, demolition, debris removal, sheds, sidewalk sheds, they put those up across the city. So these vendors can get on our, what we call our pre-qualified panel, or they can bid on requirement contracts, which are the bigger contracts for us, and they go and they do this work at HPD's direction. As the commissioner mentioned, if you're a minority or women-owned business, we encourage you to go to Small Business Services, get certified with the city as a minority or women-owned business. Even if you're not, whether you're an MWBE or not company, if you go to our website as a small contractor, there's plenty of information on how you apply to us, how you become part of our panel to do this work, and we encourage all small businesses. And these are for smaller jobs. What the commissioner was talking about was bigger construction projects. But these are $1,000 jobs, $10,000 jobs. So if you're a small business and you're really just starting out, this is a good place to start.
I'll just add two or three more things. One, as the Deputy Commissioner said, we have a website, and on that website there's a page called Vendor Opportunities where you can sign up and see a lot of this information. It was in fact conversations with minority and women-owned firms that led us to actually make changes to the way people can apply. People used to have to apply to different lists in order to get there. Now we combine it at one to make it easier for businesses. Additionally, as an agency that procures services, we do have a unit called the Equal Opportunity and Inclusionary Programs Unit that has within it MWBE staff dedicated to helping you understand what contracts are available to the city, how to work with us, how to connect with the larger SBS system, so you can reach out to us and we can connect you with that. And then finally, we as an agency are both federally funded and locally funded. So while there's sometimes challenges with our federal funding, we've been advocating both there and at state level to have even higher levels of money that we can dedicate to MWBE firms, because we see that as our strongest path of having the things that we do, things that we build, look like the people of the communities that we work in.
I can take that one, sure. So when you see a Lottery on Housing Connect advertised, thousands of people apply for that building or that project. After the deadline date, all of those applications are put in a random order. Then the agent, the marketing agent, the building agent goes through in batches to confirm that whoever's coming up in order qualifies. So the answer is sort of yes and no. There's a pacing to it, to that actual review, to reach out and confirm people do qualify for that affordable unit through income and household size. And then they continue going through those applications in that randomized order until all the units are filled. So there are also some applicants that don't get reached through that process, which I don't know if that's part of your question, but we do hear about that sometimes. So does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
And is there any way to check the status of the application?
Yep.
What is
There's a dashboard when you log into to your Housing Connect account. You go to My Dashboard.
I see.
So create the account first, make sure it's filled out properly, and then you're able to use all the different features to not only apply easily now because your information is loaded in, but also to check your status on these applications to move forward.
Can I quickly ask one more question?
We're gonna go right here, and then if we've got time, if people are able to stick around, we'll go back.
Yeah, can you get another
Question. We have a list of all 80 community-based organizations you provide funding to. And second, is there any way to check whether those community-based organizations really use the fundings effectively? Because sometimes, honestly, in my community, I rarely find anything doing by some organization to tell community know about all these opportunities in our community.
I can take that question. So we administer city council allocated funding to community-based organizations. So the 80 organizations that we have contracts with are mostly that city council funding, and we'd be happy to follow up with a link to where you can find the list of those awards and the organizations that are getting those awards. And then in addition to that, we have our own funding that we administer to community-based organizations for the Housing Ambassadors Program, which you've heard about today, which helps people apply to affordable housing. We have a homeowner help desk, which is a citywide program to assist homeowners, it's particularly low-income homeowners that have challenges with their mortgage, with making repairs, with tenants in their building, and with a range of issues. That we could also provide a list of those contractors who are involved with the homeowner help desk. That's administered by an organization called the Center for New York City Neighborhoods, but they have a coalition of 27 network partners around the city. So we'd be happy to provide that list, and then we also provide funding to organizations that provide outreach for tenant organizations, and we can provide that list as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's a mix of, like, we partner with the council through their funding, and they have their own process for making decisions. But for HPD, we've either chosen our partners through RFPs or some experience and rigorous analysis of what they do and how they deliver services.
Thank you.
Is it possible that
You?
Thank you
Can I
so
say-
much.
can I say
Very
one quick thing?
wonderful.
We also administer the New York City Housing and Vacancy Survey. We're gonna be back in the field in the fall. It is the way that we collect information about people and the housing all over the city. We've put for the last 4-6 years a lot of emphasis on making sure that we are really reaching all communities, including non-English speakers. We do translation work that is very thorough. We build the survey to begin with non-English speaking translators so that we make sure the questions really make sense to people in other languages. And that is at the heart of how we fund projects, think about policy, etc. In environments where people are also more nervous about interacting with government. It sometimes means that people are nervous to talk to us, and it's really important though that they do, because otherwise then those communities' experiences and information won't be captured. So it's on us to build trust with everybody, but we'll also be reaching out to people who can help us communicate to people all over the city that if we show up, it would be great to share your information with us. We'll be in the fall at the in the field, knocking on people's doors at the end of this year. So you'll hear more about that from us between now and then, but it's something to look out for and something that's very important to us and important for the city.
And the last thing we need to talk about, where we live, which Lucy and Michael can also talk about, is we are putting the update out this year to our fair housing plan for the city of New York. It's something that we take very seriously, and we would just say continue to watch out for that. There'll be more information. We've been working on this for some time now. This year we'll be coming to the point where we issue out the update, and it will be something we'll want to talk to you guys about in the future.
Thank you so much.
Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe.